I wanted it. Okay. So I'm gonna move you guys over here. And I'm going to share my screen. Oh, can you enable screen sharing?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I thought I had already done that, but it must have.
It's weird. I don't know, for some reason that happened with mine too.
Okay, there's.
Thank you. Okay. And I'll drag that over here. There we go. Close. So you saw that reminder, Marie, to take the star 360. It popped up there to remind me to call you. Have you taken the second one while we're talking? There's math and reading. So reading you still need to do. Okay. Good, we've talked about it now. Okay, so I did have some objectives here for us today, which are, we want to know how to, I'm just gonna write this up here, objectives, in my lovely writing. Looks even better on a white screen. Can you guys on the Zoom see the whiteboard? Thumbs up if you can. Good, okay, awesome. All right, so we want to be able to classify numbers as rational or irrational. And if you want to write this in your notes, that is a good idea. So that's our first objective. Our second objective is that we want to use, this is kind of totally different, but I want to touch on both these. We want to use the basic exponent rules to simplify expressions. Lovely. I love my writing. So those are our two objectives. So first of all, when I say rational number, what am I talking about? It's an example of a rational number. When we think of the word rational, sometimes we think of rational and irrational. When we think of a rational person, that's a person that makes good decisions, right? An irrational person's kind of all over the place. That's a different kind of thing. That's not what we're talking about here. So think about the word rational. What word is inside the word rational? I'm going to write that down here so we can see that. Rational. Rational. That's an O. What word do you see in rational? Yes?
Ratio.
Ratio. Thank you. Ratio. And what is a ratio? What's an example of a ratio?
I'm getting some feedback that they're not seeing your writing.
You're not seeing my writing? Okay, but do you see the white screen? Let's see here.
They see the white screen. I see the white screen too, but I'm
not seeing the writing either?
Didn't click
Interesting. Okay, sometimes this pauses, but I don't see that it's paused.
Yeah, it's just a white screen.
Okay, well, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go old school. We're gonna go old school.
Document camera working.
Do you? I'm gonna use the whiteboard.
Okay.
I'm gonna use the whiteboard. Okay, I'm gonna bring you guys over here. If you don't fall. And hopefully you guys can see the whiteboard as I write. Oh, there goes the speaker.
I promise
Timber! You know what, I'm just gonna leave these behind. Okay. So, old school whiteboard. If it was really old school, it'd be a chalkboard. All right, can you guys now, let me change this so I can see myself. There we go. Now the trick is not to get in front of the whiteboard. That's going to be the hard part.
Maybe stop sharing your screen and that'll open it up bigger so we can
Oh,
presenter.
thank you.
That'll make it bigger.
There we go. Okay. Now, can you guys see me and the whiteboard? Thumbs up if you can. Okay, good. So I was talking about ratio, right? Ratio. We were going to say, what is a ratio? Is that backwards to you guys? Or can you guys read that? Looks backwards to me. Ms. Powell, what do you think? Does that look backwards on the screen?
It looks perfect.
That's weird. It's backwards on my screen. Okay, so ratio. We were talking about ratio. So we didn't come up with an idea of what a ratio is yet, though, right? I gave you plenty of time to think about it now. So can you think of a ratio or an example of a ratio? Think cooking. For those of you that like to cook. Sometimes we use them in cooking. So, okay, I'll give you an example. So let's say we have pancakes. We want to make pancakes. But there's only 2 of us eating the pancakes. And if we make a full batch of pancakes, we're going to have like way too many pancakes. So we want to cut down the amount that we use, maybe by 1/2. So our ratio will be basically 2 to 1, right? We're going from, if 2 is the original amount, we're going to 1, right? So our original amount is 1/2, okay? So a ratio is like that. We can say a ratio like students at MIWA. I actually heard that there's more girls at MIWA than boys. So maybe the ratio is for every 5 girls, right? 5 girls. You guys can see that. I'm writing kind of small. There are 4 boys, okay? So that's a ratio. And we can write that as a fraction. 4/5, okay? So that's the whole idea of rational numbers. Rational numbers can be written as a fraction, okay? So some examples of that. If you were to see a number like, say, 3.2, okay? 3.2, can we write that as a fraction? No, you don't think so? What do you think? Any ideas that maybe we could? Online? I see the chat box now. Let's scroll down here. Any ideas? Can we write 3.2 as a fraction?
Well, you can write some decimals as fractions, so probably.
Yes, you can write some decimals as fractions, so probably. What is this 0.2 here in this decimal? What does that say? If we were going to say that in words, what would we say? That's 3 and 2, what? Tenths, right? So this is our tenths column, right? So that's 3 and 2 tenths. I just wrote it as a fraction. You guys see that? So decimals, as long as this decimal stops, right? It doesn't keep repeating forever, or it doesn't keep, it can repeat, that's okay, we're gonna look at that in a second, but it can't just be a long decimal that never repeats again. Okay, it just keeps going and going and going.
I'm trying to figure out what percent this is of that one number is of something else, and then look it up, and then it's like 8.6666666.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a good example. So there's another one. Let me, I don't have an eraser here. I guess that's my eraser. Let's look at another one. So let's say, I'll erase this, give us some more white space here. And can you guys on Zoom see this okay? Can you see what I'm writing, or is it too small? Yes, Giovanni says, thank you. Unstable. Your internet connection must be unstable. Okay, well, hopefully it clears up. Okay, so another example. Well, here, before we get to the repeating one, let's do one more. 6.87. Now we've got an extra decimal place, don't we? So we said this was tenths. What's our next one over in decimals?
Hundredths.
Hundredths, yes. So this is tenths. Well, I shouldn't write it as tens. Tens is over here. Tenths. And this is hundredths. Hundredths, I think I spelled that right. I'm not an English teacher. Hundredths, okay. So how are we going to write that as a fraction then? If we said that 3.2 was the same thing as 3 and 2 tenths, right? What would that be?
6, 8 tenths is 700.
Well, you're close. You're close. 6 and 87 hundredths. If this is the hundredths column, we would just say that's 87 hundredths right there. So this would be the same thing as 6 and 87 over 100. Okay? And I could keep going. If my decimals went out like 10 spaces, I could say, well, that's 6 and, a billion billionths or whatever. But it would keep going. Now, what if we get something like, let me erase that. What if we get something like this? What was my example I wrote down? Well, hold on. You guys have a calculator? If you have a phone, take your phone out right now and use the calculator.
I don't have any.
Don't have a phone, that's okay. There might be a calculator on the computer. If you don't have one, just stand by. I want you to do this for me. And folks at home, do this too. When you write a fraction, right? A fraction is a division problem. It's hidden. You may not have seen that. But this is the same thing as 1 divided by 3. Okay? Same thing as 1 divided by 3. Fractions are division, basically. So if you take 1/3 and put it in your calculator, do 1 divided by 3 and tell me what you get. What'd you get? Yes! And that keeps going. What else? Did anyone else do it? What'd you get? Yep. What'd you get? Point. 3 all the way over. Right? So this equals 0.3333. Keeps going. How do we write that though? Because we can't write all those 3s. Yeah.
Put a little line over the 3.
That's right. Good job. You know what that line's called? I love this word. Yes?
Repeating.
Well, it's repeating. That's what it means. But it actually, this little line has an actual word. You know what it is? Vinculum.
I'm not
Vinculum.
gonna remember that.
I know. You don't have to remember that. That's okay. I just like to say the word. Okay, so that's how we write that repeating fraction. So repeating decimal, sorry. So we just figured out that if we have a repeating decimal, we can write that as a fraction, right? I'll give you another example. What is 0.6 repeating? You can do it in your calculator if you want to, but don't know if you can figure it out. What would you guess? Because it's twice this one. I don't know if that helps. 1/6, good guess. It makes sense because there's a 3 in the denominator here and you got a 0.3 there, but it's not quite right. Any other guesses? This is bigger, right? 0.6 is going to be bigger than 0.3. So it's going to be a bigger fraction than 1/3. Sorry, I'm ignoring you guys on virtual.
They can probably still hear you though.
If I'm ignoring you, unmute yourself and say, hey, Mr. Lee, you're ignoring me. Make sure my volume's up there. Can't see my volume. Hopefully it is. Okay. No guesses? 2/3. Same thing. All right? So that's the whole my point there. Now, so we figured out we can write just standalone decimals that end as a fraction. We can write repeating decimals as a fraction, okay? Sometimes you get repeating decimals like this, 0.123, That one's a little bit harder to figure out, but you can write that as a fraction too, just so you know. If it's a repeating decimal, you can write it as a fraction, okay? If the same chunk repeats over and over again, you can write it as a fraction. I don't want to get into the nines thing yet. That's just a fun thing. You don't really need to know that. Okay, so what are some examples now? These are all rational numbers. We can write them as ratios. We can write them as fractions. Rational, okay? So what would be an example of an irrational number?
You can't do that.
Exactly, you can't do that. You can't write that as a fraction. Can someone give me a number that is irrational? There's a very famous number that's irrational. Comes in play. Yes?
A decimal?
A decimal? Well, these are all decimal numbers. So we said that if we have a decimal that doesn't repeat, or stops like this, or a decimal that does repeat over and over, and it's the same part that repeats, like one number here or three numbers here that keep repeating, we can write those as fractions. But, yes?
The irrational doesn't repeat. It just has a bunch of different numbers.
Correct. The irrational number just keeps going and going and going. So, an example of that would be this magic number right here. Do you guys know what that is? Have you seen that symbol before? Pi, right? Pi. Pi. No one caught me. It's not pi. It's pi with it. We can't eat it, sorry. Okay, bad joke. All right, so pi. If you type pi in your calculator, there's a number that just keeps going, and people have competitions to memorize how far they can memorize that decimal, because it goes on forever and never repeats. There are other numbers that do this. So I want you guys to do this. Take your calculators again. Do you guys know how to do a square root in a calculator? If you just type in a number, let's do the number 11, just because. 11, you do this at home too, and then hit square root and tell me what you get. The square root should be a button on there. I'm gonna get my phone and do it too. If I can find my calculator. There it is. So 11, if you have an iPhone, you have to tilt your phone sideways and then you get the scientific calculator. You got that figured out? And then square root is, on mine, it's got the square root symbol, looks like this. It's got the square root symbol with an X inside and a 2 up there. That's what it looks like.
That's what that was.
That's what that is. That just means you're trying to figure out what number you can multiply twice to get this number inside. That's what a square root means. So if you do that, 11 square root, what do you get? Let me do it. Long number, right? Did you guys do it? Anyone at home? You don't have to type the whole thing in the chat box there. So it's basically 3.3166, and then it just keeps going and never repeats. Okay? On the calculator, it looks like it stops, but it just keeps going. So you can't write this as a fraction. So a lot of square root numbers you cannot write as a fraction. Okay? Or cube roots. Can't write those as fractions. Unless you get a number that's a perfect square. So do you guys know what a perfect square number is? They're easy to find on the multiplication tables. I don't have one I can draw up here for you. But perfect squares are any number that you multiply by themselves to get something else. So in other words, 4. Right? I can multiply 2 times 2 to get 4. So this is a perfect square. Am I still on the screen? I'm still on the screen. What would be the next one up? You can multiply 2 by 2 to get 4. What would the next perfect square be?
6.
Nope.
8?
Closer. 16 is up here. That's in 2. That's 4 times 4. That's what I mean by square. Okay? So another way to think about it is like this. If I have a square, okay, that's 2 inches by 2 inches. To find the area of that square, I multiply 2 times 2, and I get 4. Yeah, 9, there you go. 9, and that's 3 times 3, right? So this is just a square, a little bit bigger. That's more of a rectangle, but it's 3 by 3. Make that look like an actual square. So you get the idea? So in the multiplication tables, if you look at, it's the diagonal that goes down. The 1 is 1 times 1. Actually, 1's a perfect square too. Right? 1 times 1. All right, so what have we learned so far?
Whatever the heck you just said.
Whatever the heck I just said. Thank you. What have we learned about rational versus irrational numbers? Can we now identify what a rational number is? If you were to run across a rational number lying on the sidewalk, would you know it was rational or irrational? What would tell you if it's a rational number?
If it's not just a bunch of random numbers after.
Right? If it's not just a bunch of random numbers, it's something like this, right? That stops. What else?
If
Is this a rational number? We didn't talk about that, did we? It's a rational number. You can write 6 as a fraction, right? 6 is the same thing as 6 over 1. So you can write it as a fraction. It's rational. One more. What's another kind of a decimal that you can write as a fraction? That would be a rational number then. Did I leave it up? I didn't leave it up. There was one other one that I had up.
Connor answered it earlier.
Did he?
Yes, maybe Connor can say it again.
Thank you for reminding me that the virtual people are here. You guys are so quiet, I forget you're there. So yeah, Connor, you got it. A repeating number like 3.33333. 3.3, that just keeps going on. That's also a rational number. We can write that as a fraction. So what is an irrational number? Someone give me an example of an irrational number now. Just make sure we all understand. Yeah.
Pi.
Pi. We said that's irrational. So irrational, rational.
Tip your computer just a little bit.
There we go. All right. So irrational, we said pi. Rational, we said 6. Rational, we said, Connor said 3.3. What's another irrational number we could put over here?
Nicole put it in the chat box for you.
Nicole does not repeat. Okay. 3.1467. That's close to pi, but we'll say 3.11467. Now I'm going to put a dot, dot, dot after it, which means nothing in here repeats. It just keeps going and doesn't repeat. So if you see dot, dot, dot afterwards, that's what that means. Okay? All right, good. I think we got this. And we said 3.2. I'll put that up there too. That's also rational. Okay, very good. The next thing I want to do, any questions about rational versus irrational? Okay, I think I've beat this to death here. So the other thing I wanted to do was, and this I do need the screen for, because in order to learn our exponent rules, I know that you guys enjoy, or some of you enjoy, the game Kahoot. So I've got a little Kahoot here for that. Now, for those of you that have not played Kahoot, there it is. It's really easy. What I'm going to do is load up the game here, and I'll put it up here, and there's going to be a website to go to and a PIN number, okay? So make sure your computers are on. You're going to log in on your computers. You guys at home, do the same thing. I'm going to share my screen with you. And Go away, Zoom. There it is. All right, now I'm gonna share this so you guys can see. Okay, do you guys at home, go full screen here so you can see all my crazy tabs. Do you guys at home see the Kahoot game? And I can't see the chat box now.
You're all saying yeah.
They're all saying yeah. Okay, you're gonna have to be my monitor now because I can't see anything for some reason.
No problem.
Okay, all right. So what you guys will do, we're gonna do classic, and in just a second you'll see the website and everything to join. Okay, so log in, and it's this right up here, kahoot.it. Turn down the music a little bit. So just log into kahoot.it on your computer, and then it's going to ask you for a PIN number. That's the big number that's on the screen there. Well, you guys do that. Okay. Kai. I like that. That's cute. Okay. So we got 14 players. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 7, so that's 18. So we're missing 3. And I should have said use your real names because I don't know who 666 is, and I don't know who this person is. But next time I'll remind you. All right, we're up to 16. 2 more. Who's missing? All right, well, we're going to get started. I'm not sure who's not on, but is everyone in here on? All right, let's go. Let's do this. Here we go. So the rules real quick. You get points for answering correctly, obviously, and you also get points for how fast you answer. So the faster you answer is a good thing. Hey, James, come on in. You want to play? Yep.
I feel like playing this.
Well, good. You can log in, and I think we're about to get started here, so you can jump in. Just go to this website right up here. Where's my Kahoot.it? Yes. And then enter that PIN number in there, and of course. All right. Okay, I'm gonna get started. I think you'll still be able to join. You want? You can set so that you can still. Okay. It should be on the screen still. Okay, we just had another person join. Good. Use your real name so I know it's you.
You know my nickname.
Oh, I think I do. Okay. Are you in?
Minecraft.
Are you in? There you go. Okay, I'll remember now. I have to see it first. Okay, here we go. You guys ready? Let's do this. 12 questions. First question is,
What is an exponent?
Oh, wait. This is the wrong one. Oh, well, we're just going to go with it. I think this one's fine. What is an exponent? So on your screen, you should see the 4 colors and shapes. It's the wrong one. It's one of the ones I looked at, but I had chosen a different one, but this one will still work. It's better than the third one I saw. Okay, time's up. 9. Pick the right answer, which is the power to which a number is raised. So an exponent, well, I won't do that because you guys can't see, but an exponent, if you have like, say, 3, and the exponent is 2, 3 and a 2, that just means 3 times itself twice. That's what that means.
Wait. How am I in 6th place?
5 people answered faster than you did.
Okay, well, do you want to know my username?
Here we go. I'll figure it out. Next question.
I was in
If a number is raised to the 0 power, what is always the answer?
0.
The number is raised to the 0 power. What is always the answer? Yep, answer on the screen. You want to give the answer right up to people. It's 1. That's a common mistake. It's not 0. It's not 0. Anything to the 0 power is 1.
Ooh.
And mathematically in the lesson on exponent rules, it tells you why that is. So I'm not going to go into it now, but look up that lesson to go back and figure out why that is.
I'm 9.
All right, Cassidy's on top. Dave is in 2nd. Nicole online is in 3rd. And Lily's here, right? Yes. Lily's in 4th.
Like an owl
Team
face.
10? Who's Team 10? Oh, awesome. Okay, here we
It
go.
has like an owl face next to it.
Yes, I'll remember that. Here we go. Next question. How do you determine an exponent when multiplying a power to a power? So like 6 squared to the 3rd power. How would you figure that out?
What the? It's not letting me. It opened another page.
Oh,
That's not fair.
not fair at all.
Oh, well, I still got it. Like,
Ooh, good job, guys. 11 of you got that right.
oh,
Multiply
that means
the
it's
exponent.
place.
So when you raise an exponent to another exponent, you multiply the 2. There's another situation, which is one of the questions, I'm not going to give it away, where you
The same score.
don't multiply the exponents. Okay, here we go. Cassidy's still on top. Looking at the same. Oh, Lily rose up one there. Good job. Shay's on the board. Here we go. What do you do when dividing exponents? So say 3 to the 5th power divided by 3 to the 2nd power. What do you do with the exponents there? Divide them, subtract them, multiply them, or add them? No. We got 18. All right, 8 of you got that right. Good job. So we subtract the exponents when one's on top of the other, as long as the bases are the same, right? If it's like in this case, 3 to the 5th divided by 3 to the 2nd, it's the same base, so we can just subtract the exponents. If we had something like 3 to the 5th divided by 5 to the 2nd, we can't do that, okay? Because they're different bases. Okay. How are we doing? Oh, Lily is rising to the top. Team 10 is on fire. You see that? That means you got a whole bunch in a row correct. I forget what it is.
Team 10 has the highest answer streak.
Yes.
Something.
That's what the little fire is up there.
No, it's Team 10 has the highest streak
Streak.
something.
Yep.
Oh,
Here we go. Next question.
that's my username at the bottom.
Good. What do you do with an exponent? I'm sorry. What do you do with a negative exponent? Keep it out the door. No, just kidding. What do you do with a negative exponent? Oh, good. No one picked green. So you find the reciprocal. Who can tell me what reciprocal means?
I don't. That's probably why I didn't get it right.
Reciprocal. Lily, did you have your hand up? No. Reciprocal, it's another fun math word. It's just a flipped fraction. So if you say you had a number like, yes, go right ahead. If you had a number like, say, 3 to the negative 2. Okay, 3 to the negative 2. You would flip that and say that's 1 over 3 to the second power. And you change that from a positive to a negative to a positive. All right. Sorry, I can't get into much detail right now during the game, and especially with some people not here. Okay. Lily's still on top. Ava's rose back up to second place. Good job. Cassidy, Melanie, all doing great. Here we go. How do we multiply exponents? So x to the squared times x to the third. How do we multiply? What do we do with those exponents? Do we divide them, multiply them, add them, or subtract them? Add them. Most of you got that right. Good job. So that's the one case when you're multiplying them just straight away, you only add them. You don't multiply the exponents together. The only time you multiply the exponents is when you have something in parentheses, like say 3 squared raised to another power. So 3 squared, and that whole thing is raised to the third power. Then you multiply the exponents. All right. Oh, Kai's on a streak now. Woohoo! Here we go. M cubed to the 7th power. What is the answer to this question? Knowing your exponent rules. Again, this is an exponent raised to another exponent. Most of you got that right too. It's m to the 21. You multiply in that case because it's one exponent raised to another. A lot of you guessed this one, which was adding. And again, you add the exponents if it's an exponent times another, like a base on an exponent times another base on an exponent. That's a confusing one. All right, Lily's still on top. Kai, Ava, Melanie, Nicole back up there. Good job. Here we go. K to the 0 power. What is the answer to this question? K to the 0 power. So we're kind of applying what we learned earlier. Actually, this one's pretty good now. I look at it in more detail. Just didn't have cool pictures. Yeah, you guys are getting it. Good job. So it's 1. Always 1. Doesn't matter if it's a letter, a number. It's always going to be 1. Because that letter, remember, that represents a number of some kind that we just don't know, right? All right. Oh. Well, that just let the cat out of the bag. Did you see that?
I saw something come up.
We're going to have a fire drill at 10. Okay. Whoa, there's my calendar. There we go. Okay. Lily's still on top. Kai, Ava, Nicole, Brooke on the board now. Where's Brooke? Brooke. Yes. Good job. All right, here we go. True or false? X to the 27 divided by x to the 15 equals x to the 12. Does that make sense? Okay, 7, 6. It is true. Most of you got it right, but it was close. So yeah, what do we do in this case? How do we figure out what the answer is? What do we do with the exponents? Yeah, subtract, right? Subtract 27 minus 15, so you get x to the 12th. Good job. All right. Ava's on a streak now. Woohoo! On fire. Here we go. X squared times x to the 7. Multiplying 2 bases together. What do we do? Oh, this one stumped ya. Actually, that's wrong. X squared times x to the 7 should be x to the 9th. Oh, we got it wrong. So I found this on the internet. So you got to always vet these things first. So if you guys guessed the blue, that is correct. I got to fix that. That's going to throw off everyone's points now. Darn it. Oh, well, we're having fun. But Lily's still on top. All right. Kai, Ava, Nicole, and Team 10. Who's Team 10? Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot Team 10. Okay, here we go. A couple more questions. X to the negative 4. How would we rewrite that? X to the negative 4. We're simplifying because we don't like negative exponents. I think it's waiting for James. All right. It is 1 over x to the 4th. That's the tricky one. So again, it's the reciprocal. So we're flipping it. And anytime you have a number by itself, if you're looking at it as a fraction, it's that number over 1. Like an example I wrote on the board, 6 over 1. So we flip it, which will be 1 over x, and then we make the exponent positive. So it would be 1 over x to the 4th. All right, last one. Here it is, folks. Oh, we had a little switch up there. Kai's on top. Kai, where are you? Kai's online, I think. Online. Way to go, Kai. All right, last question. Here it is. 5x squared times 6x to the 4th. Ooh, this is a little challenging. This is dealing with some algebra here, folks. There it is. And 4, we still got it right. That's pretty good. All right, so it's 30x to the 6th. So what you do in that case is you multiply the 5 and the 6 together, right? You get 30. And then you have x squared and x to the 4th. Those are like terms. So we keep those together. And again, if you're multiplying the base and an exponent, you add the exponents, so you should get x to the 6th. So 30x to the 6th. And the grand champion is Kai! Woohoo! Usually it pops up right away. All right, good job. Round of applause for everyone for participating. Good job. Good job. Okay, that's all I got.
So we are going to have a fire drill at 10, so in about 4 minutes. And we like to give you pre-warning because I know that sometimes people can be really sensitive to loud noises. So if anybody fits in that category, then I'll walk out with you right now, just so you can check out for all the signs. All the alarms go off. When we do go out for a fire alarm, we'll be going out the front door or this back door by the parking lot and walking along the sidewalk. Wow, I just not very well all of a sudden. So when we do that as well, usually we leave everything here and go out. It is a practice, so obviously there's no fire. So we know that going into this drill, so we don't have to be stressed about our stuff. So when we do go out, unless you have a jacket that you want to grab, go ahead and leave everything in here and back in. So is there anybody who needs to kind of exit now before the alarm goes off, or is everyone okay? All right. So I'm going to walk out with Zoe, and then the rest of you can follow Mr. Lee in about 3 minutes.
I might need to go find James.
He's in the bathroom. I'll have some.
Okay. Oh, there he is. Okay. Hey, James.
Yeah?
So we're having a fire drill. And I know if the town bothers you, do you want to exit early? Yeah, we go out with Miss Powell right now. Or do you want to go out with us?
Yes, we'll go on.
Okay. Well, hang on one second, James, because I got to make sure there's someone that can do well with you. So, real quick. You want to go with them? Okay. Marie's going to join you, Scott. Okay. So, Zoom folks, hang tight because there you are. You guys can just take a break right now, actually. And then we're going to be back in probably about 5 to 10 minutes. Let's just say be back at 10 after 10, okay? 10 after 10. Cool, okay. Kind of anticlimactic because we know it's coming. So it's more fun when we're like, what's going on? Anyway, so speaking of this, so okay, you guys heard about the earthquake that happened in Mexico City, right? Really bad. Really bad. A lot of people died, unfortunately. But what was ironic is that just the same day, just hours before, they had done this big earthquake drill in the city because it was the same anniversary as this huge earthquake that happened in 1885. And so there was some confusion because that morning they did this big earthquake drill, and then all of a sudden, again, the sirens are going off. So people were like, wait a minute, are we having another drill? What's going on? But it was an actual earthquake. So that was kind of weird, but it happens sometimes. So hopefully the same thing doesn't happen here. It's just a drill. See how close to 10 o'clock it actually is. There it is. All right. Follow me.
but not really. So if anyone needs to go run use the restroom, let's take about 5 more minutes before we get started, okay? So feel free to go get a drink, go to the bathroom.
I told the Zoom people.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That's perfect, Miss Powell. I told the Zoom people to come back at 10 after. All right. Let me untether here. Do you want to use? Oh, you have your computer.
Yeah, well, and you know, I had this computer a little ways until last year, so maybe I just hadn't used it. I downloaded it again, and it's funny.
Oh, huh.
I don't know. Who knows?
Bizarre. Let me get to that. Actually, I closed my lid and I got moved in and log back in.
Oh, that same thing happened to me too. Okay. So for some reason, it's not really letting me.
Probably me.
I'm not sure what. Maybe you know how to do this here. I want to have side by side my docu camera and this, but it's not letting me.
You sure you don't want to have the docu-cam up on there and then your other screen over here?
Will the people on Zoom be able to see both?
Uh-huh. As long as you're sharing the screen that has the docu-cam, then
Okay, so
do
how
they need to see, because they don't need to see the Zoom screen, they only need to see the docu-cam.
Right.
Okay, so let's do this.
Because I can have them.
Hold on a second, let me do one quick thing here for you.
I'm so glad you know how to deal with all of this because I am not very.
Just know enough to get in trouble, that's all I know. Okay, so we're gonna not mirror, we're gonna do side by side, and we want this the other way. Put this over here. So that when we go this way, we're over on that side. Okay, now we want this over here.
So that's what they will see.
And then you want your Zoom session up here. Back to me. Where's your manager?
I don't know what happened. Maybe I kicked myself out. Oh, it's down here. I have it minimized. Sorry.
Oh, I didn't see
There
it.
we go.
Okay, so you should be good.
All right.
And then I can see, like, if you want to look at stuff here, then right over here. And they can all pull up that lesson on their own too, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
What lesson is that? I can tell them to get in there.
1.05 and there's social studies.
Okay, so if you guys in class go on, log into your social studies class and then assignment 1.05. By the way, I told this shit, yeah, you guys are an awesome class. Everyone's great, paying attention, everyone's being quiet, and that's awesome. You guys are great.
But participating, not just like.
But participating.
Because you can be quiet and be totally disengaged.
Oh, you need to let me in. I'm not in this Zoom.
Oh, let's see.
Go over here. Actually, that's where it is. Hit the green. There you go. And then manage. And oh, here it is.
Oh.
It's like, where are they gonna pop up? Okay, now I can control.
Awesome. Okay, so now Florida Virtual is being obnoxious. Let's see here. If it's not one thing, it's another.
All right, you guys, you're in. You're seeing a blank screen too, aren't you? Oh, there it is. It's just taking a while. You're in.
For those of you in the room, go ahead, pull out your social studies notebook, and then also pull up your 1.05 lesson in your social studies class. For those of you online, you're going to be kind of splitting your screen. I'm going to share my screen so you'll see a notebook, and I'm going to be writing on my notebook. But I'd also like you to bring up another, you'll have to kind of split it. So you'll have to make the Zoom session a little smaller so that you can also go into your social studies lesson 1.05. And if you're having troubles with Zoom, if your Zoom is full screen, hit the escape button, the button that says ESC, and that will allow you to make that screen, the Zoom session screen, smaller. Oh, right. Okay. Where are you at?
Here. I think.
Oh,
I think you
we have to go
I think you
here.
have to participants. And more. Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
Awesome.
Which one again?
Social Studies Lesson 1.05. Let me try it in here. Yeah, don't go into the assignment. Make sure you go into the lesson. And Florida Virtual is giving me troubles. I don't know if it's giving anybody else troubles. Anybody else having an issue with that part of that lesson not popping up?
It's just really slow.
Where it's showing show text version. We might have to just look at the text version. How about online? Are you guys having problems with the lesson loading where it just says show text version, but it doesn't have that interactive element on the first page?
I'm not having problems.
You're not having
Yeah.
problems?
They're having problems too a little bit.
So some people are. So I don't know, Florida Virtual is being weird right now, but we can look at the text version. That's no problem. All right. Okay, so just a quick check-in. Can everybody at home hear me? Can do thumbs up or a head nod. Yeah, perfect. All right. So today we are going to jump into taking notes, and we're going to use a lesson where this assignment is actually due tomorrow, I believe. And I think there's about 3 people who have already completed it. So for those of you who have already completed it, I apologize, we're taking notes on the lesson you've already done. However, we're kind of doing a dual thing here. The first one is that you're learning how to take appropriate notes. And I figure if you're gonna take notes, let's take notes on an assignment that's coming up. So we've got kind of 2 things happening here. So for those of you who have completed this assignment, whether you're online or in the classroom, know that this is going to be more about just helping you with note taking since you've already completed that assignment. So any questions about that? All right, so the objective today, the main objective is to learn how to take Cornell notes. That way you can move forward through the rest of the term, having a better understanding of what is being asked of you when you take notes for all of your classes. And you should be translating this style into every single class you have with note taking. So I am going to do a little bit of drawing here really quick on this notepad that I have. And there's a couple really important things to start with. If you're taking notes in a notebook, what do you think is the most important thing to do before you start taking notes? Yes, tell me your name again.
Timothy.
Timothy, what do you think?
Label the top.
Label the top, right. If you take a bunch of notes, but you don't label what you're taking, and then you have to try to find them later, it's a really big pain. Yes, label the top. So up here in this top part, we call it the header or the title, whatever you want to do. That's where we have to put our labels so we can find it. Because if you can't find your information, your notes are not going to help. So what is the name of this lesson that I had you go to in social studies? Anybody want to tell me? You can look right up at the top. It's kind of in that grayish box. Yeah, James. 1.05 economics, and I'm using the and sign. You can write it out too. Slavery. Right. So now we have the number of the lesson. We know what lesson it is. We also have the title of the lesson. That tells us where to go. Okay, perfect, good job. Now, I did something on this side of the notes as well. See how I drew this line here, giving us kind of some space. If you go back to your lesson, the lesson 105, just kind of scroll through really quick, and you might even have to go to the next page. The first page doesn't have a lot of information in it. What do you think we should put on that left side? What do you think should go here? There's not a lot of space, so we can't be putting a ton of notes there, right? I mean, unless you write really tiny, but that's probably going to be very hard for us to read later. It's going to be really hard for me to read if I have to check your notes because I don't have very good eyes. What do you think we could be putting on that side before we jump into taking notes? It's another organization thing. People online, if you have an idea, just chat it in the chat box or unmute yourself and you can talk as well. Any ideas?
Question again?
What could we be putting in this side area of our notes? We've got the title at the top, so we know what lesson we're taking notes on.
Different sections, right?
Different sections. Awesome, James. Yeah, were you going to say that, Lily, or did you have another? Or questions? Right. And actually, I'm going to kind of combine both yours and James's idea. We are going to do different sections of the text, but we're going to turn them into questions to help us answer them in our notes. So first page, it's an introduction. It's always the introduction. It tells us what we're going to be learning in the lesson. Before we go into the text part, just scroll down to the bottom of the page. What do you see in a big, kind of bold, grayish brown box? What does it say? Objectives. Right. So when you start your first page on your lesson, first thing, title, right? Second thing, we're going to make a section here called objectives. So on the left-hand side, I'm writing the word objectives. That's telling me the little like subheading that I'm going to take notes about. So what would be your guess of that third thing we're going to do? We got the title, we got our first little subheading called objectives. Right, so we're going to put the objectives in there. If we write those objectives down right away, it's reminding us what we're going to be learning. So if you look down here, there are 3 objectives. This is the only time that I'm okay with you copying word for word when you take notes, okay? Usually when you're taking notes, I don't want you to copy word for word. We'll talk about that in a minute. But for the objectives, it is okay to do that. So go ahead, let's have everyone take a couple minutes and let's write down those objectives. If we write them down and read them, it'll help us remember them a little bit better. Yes, Zoe. Oh no, Mr. Arlene, do you mind helping Zoe see if she can get the lesson out? Okay. So objectives, we're gonna write it down. We're gonna write it down in that big space right next to our subheading that says objectives. Those of you at home, I want you to be doing the same thing in your social studies book. I use little bullet marks when I do it, just like you see. I think that that's helpful. For those of you who have already taken notes for this lesson, maybe what you need to do instead of retaking the notes is to just make notes about how to take notes. So you could say title goes here, subheadings or subtitles go here, notes that belong to that subtitle go here. So you can actually write down the explanation of what we're doing rather than actually taking notes on the lesson. Does that make sense, Bonnie? Okay. Because I know you're one of the ones in that category. Let's do a show of hands or thumbs up for people online that have those down, just to get an idea of how much longer. Okay, so most people are still working. Okay, we'll take a couple more minutes here, get those down. Mr. Ling, I don't have faces up, so if you see anything, just holler at me.
What's that?
If you see anything, just holler at me because I'm not.
Oh, yes. I thought the faces on the screen because I'm getting people to turn their videos on again.
Oh, good. Perfect. Yeah, I just have them kind of minimized. So. Let's do another quick check. Hands up if you are still working. Switch it this time. Hands up if you're still working on writing these down. See one person still writing. How about online? A little bit more. All right. So let's go ahead and move forward. If you don't have all the objectives written down, just know that you'll go back and finish that up. But let's go ahead and keep moving forward because I think most people are complete. So we've got them written down. You probably read them as you wrote them down. But let's just look over them again really quick so it reminds us of what we're going to be looking for in this lesson. So the objectives for this lesson are to identify examples of colonial interdependence, recognize jobs performed by enslaved Africans in America, and to analyze the impact of slavery on America's economy. Now, if you read those and there's any vocabulary you're not sure what means, sometimes I think it's good to circle those words. So that way, as you're reading, you'll see if you can figure out what it means, okay? Yeah, you can look up the definition right away if you want to as well. But sometimes it's a good idea to circle those words if you're not really sure what it means, right? Like the word interdependence, that might be one that some people are like, oh, I'm not sure I know what that means, okay? So you can look it up right away, or you can see if you can find it out during the lesson. Okay, so take a second and circle anything on your notes if something pops out that you're not sure of. Or you can highlight. If you like highlighters, that's a great thing to do too. Let's just highlight them. Awesome. All right, so oftentimes on the first page, there's an interactive little thing. The interactive part was not working. So let's just read through this. Do you see something on this page underneath the title that would help give us another subtitle or another subheading? So a word that jumps out. we jumped down and looked at the objectives, and the objectives was a subtitle. Is there another word here that looks like it could be another subtitle? Usually it's in bold or it's a different color or maybe both. What do you think? Anybody see a word? Yeah. Introduction, right. So it's hard to kind of turn that word into a question, but it's important to also look through it. So let's put down introduction as another, or you can put intro if you want to not have to write out the whole word. Just in case we want to take some notes. Let's put that down so we have a connection. All right, anybody like to read? Anybody like to read out loud? And that can be for people online because you can unmute yourself. Some people love reading out loud, so I'm asking because sometimes it gets boring listening to my voice forever. Anybody online want to volunteer to read? No? Okay, I'll go then. All right, in colonial times, just like today, people worked in specialized fields. Blacksmiths, cobblers, bakers, and carpenters were all essential to the success of their communities. Let's learn how one colonial family depends on the services of others. So what are we learning? Just looking at that sentence, what are we about to learn?
Well, how one
So you're going to learn about how a family leans on some different jobs, right? We're basically going to learn about some different jobs. Good. All right. So the image that some of us can't see shows a colonial family in their kitchen. Beneath the family is a list of professions. When you click on the name of the profession, we don't have that, so we can't click on them, or at least for those of you who don't have the interactive part. So we're just going to jump down to the list. We have blacksmith, remove all metal. We have fur trapper, remove fur. We have, oh, wait a minute. I think the remove metal, that must be that it just reveals what it says. Let's see, Marie, you have it. It removes the thing. It removes it, so it's showing you what it is. Oh, good.
Do you want to see if you try some of this?
Yeah, go for it if you can. The problem is that's, I'm not sharing that screen, so
Okay.
I know that not everybody will see it.
So sometimes when it doesn't load, and this goes for everyone and online folks too, if you're in Canvas on a lesson and the information doesn't load, if you just right click on it and click reload frame, sometimes that will get it to pop back up again.
Awesome.
Sometimes. Not always, like in this case, but oh, no, I don't think so. JK. We'll check your settings in a minute. Let's see.
Okay.
But anyway.
Yeah, sometimes I have Florida virtual problems just like you all.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically the text is walking us through the interactive part so you can see the different things that the jobs would have provided for the family, right? Like fur or metal. So let's take a minute because there's not a whole lot of information in that. And let's jump down and read below it. Let's see if we can find any information below that interactive part that we would want to write in our notes. So underneath the interactive part, it says, just as individuals and communities relied on each other for goods and services, the colonists relied upon neighboring colonies as well. The New England, Middle, and Southern colonies grew different crops and created different products. They also relied on trade with European countries for products not available in America. In this lesson, you'll explore ways that colonists were able to obtain goods and services, focusing on the jobs performed by slaves in colonial America. So in the intro, what is something, how could we capture that little paragraph in our own words? What are some important parts of that little intro paragraph? there are a few pretty important things in that. What do you think? What's it talking about? What's it telling us? Look for explicit information. Explicit information is that information that is directly told to us. Like, it is raining outside. That's very explicit. What is it telling us? You guys are so quiet. I know it's not as much fun as math. Sorry.
Game too, so
I know you guys have to play games and math, and I'm making you work.
not all of them.
Is it talking about how they trade? You see that? That's pretty explicit. So if I go over here next to intro, I could put colonies traded goods and services. Between, who did they trade between? Look at that paragraph. There's two different things it tells us that they traded between. Anybody want to give that to me? And people online as well, you can put it in the chat box or you can unmute yourself. Colonies traded goods and services between what? Yeah.
Each other.
Between each other or between different colonies, right? Between each other. Between different colonies. And between one more. There's one more place it talks about. You have to cross the sea to get there. What does it say? Anybody online? Does it say that you're trading with Jamaica? European colonies. Thank you. Awesome. Woohoo. Perfect. We could also put something in there about New England, New England states, middle states, and southern states. But I think that just that little statement right there talking about trade with the different jobs is good. Okay, so let's go to the next page. Usually the first page you don't get a whole lot of information from. It's just setting you up so you know what you're going to be learning about. Oops, that was the wrong button. Sorry about that. That would have taken you all to your assignment. Let me go back.
I do that all the time.
I know, sometimes I click the wrong arrow.
And this is a really important skill, good note taking, because I was one of those students that wrote every single thing down, and I wrote so fast that I couldn't read my writing, and I didn't know what I wrote. So this is a really, really good strategy in helping all of your classes.
Awesome. Yeah, so now we're going to talk about taking those headers and turn them into a question. So the first couple, the objectives, the intro, I mean, you could say, what are the objectives? What is the introduction? So you could turn it into a question. But going forward, after you get the objectives down and a little intro down into your lesson, now we're going to be taking the headers and turning them into questions. Why do you think it's important to turn it into a question? So the first header here is, it all depends. I mean, what is that telling us? Well, I don't know. This is kind of a weird header, right? Why would we turn that into a question? What does that help us do? What do you think? Any ideas? No ideas? If you turn the header into a question, then when you're taking your notes, you are doing what? Answering the question. All right. So it's just a little technique that if we turn the header into a question, it reminds us, oh yes, everything I'm looking from this section should be answering that question somehow, right? And that's a great skill to have for note taking because it is so easy to do exactly what Mr. Ling just said, and that is to try to write everything down. Well, the reality is, if we have to write everything down, it's too much information. We're not going to remember it. And B, why do it? It's already there for us. Why rewrite everything down? So if we're answering a question, we're also helping us put our notes into our own words, right? What is one other reason why putting our notes into our own words is important? What if you go to do an assignment and you go back to your notes and you want to take a whole sentence out of your notes to use for your assignment? What does putting those notes into your own word help you? Yeah, plagiarism, right. Yeah, exactly. So if your notes are in your own words, you've already helped prevent yourself from plagiarizing. And sometimes we plagiarize on accident. Everybody know what plagiarism means? That's okay, it's all right. So we got some, looks like some chats online. Everybody online, you guys know what plagiarism is? Where you take somebody else's words, or it could be an image, it could be music. There's lots of things you can plagiarize. And you pretend like it's your own. You don't give that person credit. And we can do that on accident, not even realizing it. Anybody know how many words in a row we have to have for it to be plagiarized? Yeah, five. Right, I was giving it to you even though I was pretending like I was raising my hand. Nice. If you have 5 words in a row, you're actually plagiarizing unless you give credit to where you got it, right? So watch that. Make sure you have, only 4. But really, it's still best to try to put it in your own words. Okay, so let's turn, see if I can slide this up. Let's turn our next header into a question. The header is, it all depends. How can we turn that into a question? What all depends? I don't know, this is an awkward header, so let's try that. Let's put, what all depends. I mean, for me, if I didn't already kind of know what the objectives of the lesson were, that would be so confusing. So we're going to be looking in this first paragraph and trying to answer what depends. Let's see what it says. Anybody want to read, or you want me to keep going? All right, not hearing voices, so I'll keep going. All right. During colonial times, the role of each community member was valuable. Families like the Smiths needed the service of a tanner, blacksmith, and carpenter for items they could not produce on their own. This is called domestic interdependence. Colonists also depend on products from other countries, such as manufactured goods from Europe and sugar from the Caribbean. A system of international interdependence developed because other countries also relied on the colonies for raw materials and crops grown in the Americas. Now, if you notice in your lesson, you'll have some words that look like hyperlinks. If you hover over them, they give you a definition. So did anybody circle the word interdependence? Not sure what it meant? here's a great place in your lesson that you can now get the definition for it. And hopefully that will help you understand how to answer the question, what all depends. Okay, so take a second, reread that paragraph on your own. And I want everyone to try to pick out at least one thing in that paragraph that helps us answer the question, what all depends? What does that mean?
Oh, really?
So if you've got your idea of one thing you can put down in your notes to help answer that question, go ahead and get it in there in your own words, and then we're going to do a little share. We'll get some ideas of what people wrote down, okay? And if you hear somebody else's idea that you think is helpful, you can steal their idea and write it down as well. Here, we got it right. Should look ahead. Okay, there's a couple other people in that spot too. How about one more minute to write down that one idea of answering the topic or the question, what all depends, and then we'll share. All right, at least in the classroom, it looks like people have kind of finished, for the most part, writing it down. Again, for those of you online, you're welcome to unmute yourself and talk with the class, or you can go ahead and chat in the chat box. So let's give some examples. What are some different answers that people wrote down for the notes? Yes.
People relied on products from other or different countries.
Good. People relied on products from each other and different countries, right? So what are they doing? They relied. What's another word that we can use for relied? And you keep relied because that's a good word. But what's another word that's similar, means the same? Depends. Yeah, they depend on each other, right? So the word relies is another way of explaining how they're depending on each other. And that helps us answer that question. What all depends? Well, they're depending on each other for these products, right? Perfect. Awesome. What's another example? What is something else? And it could be, basically the same thing, but just worded differently. That's fine too, because this is all about helping each other learn how to put them in our own words. So the more we all get to hear some different ways, the better it is for us to learn to take notes. So what's another one that someone wrote down? I know I saw people writing, so I know those ideas are out there.
Sorry, did you say dependent?
Huh?
Giovanni said dependent. I don't know.
Dependent?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, perfect. Yeah, I'm not seeing it, so you might have to just throw it
No,
out.
I didn't. I thought that was the word that you just said. I just wanted to.
Yeah, dependent is another word. That's so the root of the word would be depend, right? Dependent is another one. And if you look in the lesson, again, it talks about domestic interdependence and international interdependence, right? So another word, interdependence, that's using that root word of depend, right? So they must all mean something similar, even though they look a little different. That helps us learn vocabulary that we may not have known in the beginning, right? So let's get one more. Anybody want to share in the classroom or share online what your one part was that you wrote down to answer that question? You guys are so quiet and shy. I promise by the end of the year, we'll be very different. We'll be like, come on, people. Stop talking. Nice. So James says they depend on certain people for products they can't make or is it make or what did you say? Oh, that they can't make on their own. Okay. Good. Perfect. So those are two different examples. I lost. There we go. Those are two different examples that help us answer that question. What all depends, right? Now, before we move to the next section, and I didn't write those two sentences down. I apologize. Go ahead and write any more down if you want. But what do you think we could also put in the notes that would be helpful? That is vocabulary that would help us answer that question. What all depends? I've already highlighted it. What is in this paragraph that is vocabulary that could be very important for quiz or assignment that also helps us answer that question, what all depends? What do you see? And people online, same thing. You can throw it in the chat box if you know the answer. What in this paragraph is vocabulary that could be very important? Yes. Domestic interdependence, right? So we might want to hover over that and write down the definition for that vocabulary word, right? So we would put down here, I think you said domestic, right? So we could put down domestic interdependence. Oh, sorry, I was looking at the, it went up. I was looking at the screen as I was writing to make sure I spelled it right. So now it's all kinds of goofy, right? So I've got that down. Now if I hover over it, it says reliance within a community or nation for products or services, right? So we can say that they're relying on each other within a community. That's important, within a community. Domestic means it's within your space, like your household. A lot of times people say domestic when they're referring to your household, right? Something that happens just in your house. Here, domestic is something that's happening in your community. So it could be Gresham, it could be Oregon, could be United States. So those communities expand to get a little bit bigger, but it's something that is a part of your culture, right? Or your community. So you write the definition here. There's one more that would be really important to put in this, the notes to help answer what all depends. We got the domestic interdependence. What's the next one? What's the last one? Are all the people online being quiet? Remember, you're part of this class. You can jump in here and answer these questions too. We got domestic, and what's the second one?
Totally got to represent.
Yeah, you guys have to represent for sure. You were representing well in math. Everyone's just getting tired and hungry, right? So, oh, yes. International, right? So same thing. You're going to write down international interdependence.
Liliana said international interdependence.
Awesome. Perfect, Liliana. Good job. And then again, you're going to write the definition. You can hover over it in your lesson. Vocabulary words are really important like this. That's why they give you the definition form. They want you to know them, right? So the international one is probably what? The domestic is us close here in our own little community. International is what? Is international, right? It could be working with different countries. Perfect. Awesome. Let's see what time it is. Okay. So because today ended up being a little strange with the interruption, plus our technical difficulties that we had, I swear we will get better at it, I promise. You guys are helping us learn by coming here and being part of these labs. So we're not going to get all the way through, but I've got you started. But before we kind of close up, let's just walk through quickly what the steps would be for the next section. So we did It All Depends. The next section is called Slave Trade. How do we turn it? Oh, almost gave you. What do we do? What do we do with that title? Slave Trade. Yes. Put it into a question. So what can we put there for a question? How can we turn it into a question?
What is the slave trade?
What is the slave trade? Right. So again, we're going to put what is slave trade question mark. Let me move my document camera down here, right? It's going to go in the left side. Now we know after we read or while we're reading, we're answering that question. So as we read through the paragraphs in this part, what do we want to do? What's the most important thing that we want to do when putting down notes in that note section? There are a few important things. What do you think? Do we want to copy it word for word? No. No. We've already got it written down. We don't need to copy it word for word. That's ridiculous. We don't want to do all that work. So what do we want to do? If we're not copying it word for word, what are we going to do? Write it in your own words. Good. So let's put here, make question, right? For the notes, we're going to write in our own words. Perfect. What else are we going to do? What are we trying to find? I mean, I could say, I hate McDonald's because it's bad for me. Is that good note-taking for this subject? No. It's totally irrelevant, right? So what are we going to do while we're putting it in our own words? Use the information that you're reading about. Yes. Use the lessons information. Good. But with that lessons information, what are we trying to do? It's like a cycle. I'm cycling you back to something.
Answer the question.
We're answering the question, right? So if you get, I mean, sometimes when you read lessons, there's tons and tons of information. We know we don't want to write every word. Some of that information we may go, oh yeah, that really feels like it's answering the question. That's probably really important. So that helps us know how to synthesize, how to pull out what the important information is, right? They might give you other information that is cool to learn, but maybe isn't really fully answering that question. That's again why turning those subheadings into a question can be so helpful with note taking. Perfect. So I'm gonna write that down. Answers the question. Anybody have, ooh, 1 minute. Anybody have any questions for me on just that process? I know we went through a lot and it's kind of like, but it's super important. We'll keep going back and helping you with this. No questions? How about online? Anybody have any questions about what we did? I keep looking back to Mr. Ling because he's the one that's watching the chat.
Silence.
Silence. All right. So I got you started on this assignment, this lesson. The assignment is due, I think, tomorrow. So it would be not a bad idea to finish it up. It's actually, there's not a lot left of the lesson. There's only 3 pages. The first page was the intro. The second page is really all the information, and the third page tells you about the assignment. So really all you have is the rest of this page to finish with notes. If you get stuck with note taking, please send me an email because we can jump into a Zoom session and I can help you out, okay? Awesome. Thanks for being so flexible today with all of the random weird stuff that happened. All right, you guys are welcome to clean up. Those of you online, you're welcome to hop off the Zoom session and keep working on your notes. Oh, perfect, for the art. Sweet. Thank you.
Everyone says you're not going to be here until 10, until 11:10, so I'm going to stay until 11.
Oh, until 10 after 11?
Right. That's true.